Bridges ya llegó.
Tus puentes de oportunidades.
Bridges ya llegó.
By Martha Reyna Connects.
By Martha Reyna Connects.
This is Bridges by Martha Reyna Connects. Bridges, tus puentes de oportunidades. It's a beautiful summer day here in Boston. The sun is shining. People are walking along the Charles River. Outdoor patios are full. Students, runners, cyclists, families, and tourists seem to come alive when the weather changes. Every year I notice the same thing. The city feels different. But maybe what's even more interesting is how people change too. A little more energy, a little more optimism, a little more willingness to try something new. And that got me thinking about change. Because sometimes the biggest changes in our lives don't happen because conditions are perfect. They happen because we make a decision. And that brings me to a question I have been asking myself lately. What did I get myself into? Well, hello everyone. This is Martha. Welcome to Martha Reyna Connects and welcome to Bridges, a podcast about the decisions, connections, perspectives, and experiences that help us move from where we are to where we want to be. Because I believe the bridge between our current reality and our future potential is often built through awareness, connection, and better decisions. Each episode will explore the moments that shape us, the choices that challenge us, the people who inspire us, and the lessons that help us grow. And today, I would like to begin with a decision that changed my life. More than 25 years ago, I stood at a crossroads. Two continents, two very different futures. One path would take me to Japan. The other will take me to Boston. I didn't have complete information. I didn't have certainty. I didn't have a spreadsheet telling me which option was best. I had a feeling. And I had a cousin in Boston, Jose, that was cheering me on to make a decision and root for Boston. So I had a feeling and I had a choice. Looking back now, I realized that decision became one of the first real lessons in decision making for me. Years later, while attending Harvard Extension School the second time, I took a course called The Art and Science of Decision Making. As I worked through the class, I found myself revisiting that moment. Because what I learned is that most meaningful decisions don't come wrapped in certainty. In fact, they usually arrive surrounded by ambiguity. One of the first questions we explored in class was whether decision making is an art or a science. My conclusion? It's both. But most important decisions in life often feel more like an art. Have you experienced that? Because life rarely gives us perfect information. We make decisions under uncertainty. We make decisions with incomplete data. We make decisions while managing risk, emotion, intuition, and hope. And that was certainly true for me. When I was deciding between Boston and Japan, there was no perfect answer, only a choice. And eventually, I chose Boston. And here I am. Now, years later, I can look back and connect the dots. But at that time, I couldn't. And that's another important lesson about decision making. We often judge decisions based on their outcomes. But great decisions are not about guaranteed outcomes. They're about making the best decision possible with information available at the time. One of the most influential thinkers we studied was Daniel Kahneman, author of Thinking Fast and Slow. He describes two systems that shape how we think. This is super interesting. System 1 is fast, intuitive, automatic. System 2 is slower, analytical, deliberate. When I think about my Boston decision, I can see both systems at work. My intuition immediately leaned toward Boston. I can't fully explain why. It just simply felt right. Then my analytical side stepped in. I started evaluating opportunities, universities, career possibilities, cultural differences, future growth. Both systems were involved. But ultimately, intuition played a larger role than I realized at the time. And that's another lesson. So, the goal is not to eliminate intuition. The goal is to understand when to trust it and when to challenge it because our minds are powerful, but they are also imperfect. We all have biases, we all have assumptions, we all have stories we tell ourselves. And those stories influence our decisions far more than we realize. Looking back, I can see some of my own biases. I believe Boston represented opportunity. That was a belief because I had never been in Boston and I wasn't reading a lot about Boston, but somehow I may have had a comment from a friend and then I made some associations in my brain. So, because I believe that Boston was the opportunity, I focused heavily on information that supported that belief. And because I was excited about the opportunity in the future, I naturally paid more attention to evidence that confirmed my thinking. And by the way, that is called availability bias. That's human nature. But awareness changes everything. When we understand our biases, we become better decision makers. And that's another reason that I created Martha Reyna Connects, because connection alone isn't enough. Information alone isn't enough. Growth happens when we combine connections with awareness, when we understand how personality shapes communication, how assumptions influence opportunity, how fear affects action, how confidence affects leadership, how self awareness improves decision making. Professionally, I have the privilege of working at Microsoft, where I collaborate with incredible people, customers, universities, and partners who design and deploy innovative solutions on Azure Cloud. And what's fascinating is that even in highly technical environments, the same patterns continue to appear. Growth happens through people, through collaboration, through perspective, through trust, and through the decisions we make every day. Technology may accelerate possibilities, but human connection, leadership, and awareness are still what move things forward. Being surrounded by people solving complex problems across very complicated and dynamic industries has made me even more curious about how we think, how we lead, how we connect, and how we create meaningful impact together. Because behind every innovation, there are still humans making decisions, humans navigating uncertainty, humans overcoming fear, humans trying to build something meaningful. And that's exactly what we're going to explore here. This podcast won't be about having all the answers. It will be about asking better questions. So for example, questions like why do people get stuck? Why others move forward? How do we make better decisions? How do we become more intentional about the lives we're building? And how do we build stronger bridges to our next chapter? We'll explore these questions through conversations with real people, students of all ages, industry experts, athletes, mothers, entrepreneurs, professionals navigating career changes, people building business, people reinventing themselves, and people who are still figuring things out. So, because wisdom doesn't belong to one group, we're going to explore all of those things through different guests. So, some of the most valuable lessons come from hearing how someone else approached a challenge, navigated uncertainty, or made a difficult decision. My hope is that Martha Connects becomes more than a podcast. It becomes a community, a place where people feel inspired to think deeper, connect better, challenge assumptions, expand perspectives, and move toward their next level with greater awareness and confidence. Because sometimes one conversation really can change everything. And sometimes one decision can change the direction of an entire life. For me, that decision was Boston. And looking back now, it wasn't just a choice between two cities. It was the beginning of everything that followed. Thank you for being here. Welcome to Bridges. Welcome to Martha Reyna Connects. And until next time, keep building bridges, my friends.
Bridges ya llegó.
Tus puentes de oportunidades.
Bridges ya llegó.
By Martha Reyna Connects.
By Martha Reyna Connects.
This is Bridges by Martha Reyna Connects. Bridges, tus puentes de oportunidades.